Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Matt Hester, and welcome to another quick look of Windows Server 2008 R2. In this screencast, we're going to take a quick peek at installing the migration tools for migrating your server environments from 2008 or even 2003 Windows Server to 2008 R2. Now, regardless of what role, whether you want to migrate DHCP or AD, the basis for all the migration inside of 2008 R2 and migrating to those servers is having the tools installed. And the great thing here is that Windows Server 2008 out of the box has these built-in migration tools for you to actually use and leverage. So let me go ahead and show you how to install the tools on your 2008 R2 box, as well as how to install the tools inside of your source servers, whether it's an O3 box or an O8 server. The great thing about these tools, as I mentioned, is they are built in. It's just a Windows feature. So inside my Windows feature, notice I already have installed them, Windows Server Migration Tools. I did that prior to the screencast, but if you want to install them, you'd simply go to Add Features, select Windows Server Migration Tools, and step through the wizard. And there's only like 2 clicks after it. The installation is fairly basic when you install them. Now, the first thing you have to do after you've installed them on R2 is actually create a package that is aware of the OS you're installing, your source OS, and what architecture, whether it's a 64-bit machine or a 32-bit machine. You have to know that about your source server, because what you have to do inside of R2 is actually create a package to load and install on those other servers that will have the rest of the tools so we can actually perform the migration effectively. Now, to do that inside of an R2 box, you need to hop into your command prompt, which is what I'm going to do here, and you need to hop into your System32 directory, or your Windows directory first, I should say, then your System32 directory. And inside of your System32 directory, when you install the server migration tools, you actually have a server migration tools directory. And if I do a quick dir, you can see that you have the tools. You even have a PowerShell console for this. But more importantly, notice you have smigdeploy.exe. That's how we actually create the destination installation packages for us. Now, the other thing you need addition into the tools installed is just a location to store those actual files. On my computer, on my C drive, I've shared out this folder called migration. And this migration folder is where I'm going to install the tools on locally. You can put these tools pretty much anywhere onto a USB key or burn them to a DVD, but you have to get these tools to your destination or your source server off your destination server very, very easily. It's just a matter of having a location to do that. And in my case, I'm just going to use a server share. Now, to create your package, it's smigdeploy /package. Tell it I want to create a package for this. And then you have to tell it what architecture that you want to create it for. You can either put AMD 64, or you can put simply x86 for 32-bit systems. It just depends on what you want to do. For my particular example, I'm just going to install the 64-bit tools. Then you need to tell it what OS you're going to install it to. It can either be Windows Server 2003 or Windows Server 2008, just WS08 or WS03. In my case, I'm going to be migrating from a 2003 server. And then you simply tell it the path you want to migrate, put the migration tools into. So I'm going to put them in my migration tools directory. Make sure I got everything spelled right. And it's going to copy those tools inside of there. Now, what did it actually create for me? If I open up this directory, now notice I actually create files for this. Now, what if I wanted the 32-bit versions of those? As I mentioned before, all I would have to simply do is change this one parameter to say x86, and it's going to create those migration tools there as well. Now, it's going to take a second to run that, but notice now I get those different migration tools. So depending on the architecture that you're installing in the OS, we have these built-in tools to actually perform the migration. This is part one. The other part that you have to do is that after you've installed them here, is you have to copy these files down to your local system and then actually register those files on top of there. So let me go ahead and switch on over to my Windows 2003 server. Now, after you've installed them on your OA box, on my O3 box, I need to install the migration tools. Now, that's actually pretty easy to do. However, before you can actually install and make the tools usable on your O3 box, you need to have the .NET Framework 2.0 loaded, as well as PowerShell 1.0 or later. On your 2008 boxes, you just need to make sure you have PowerShell loaded on those systems to make this work. Now, how do I get the tools over here? Well, that's pretty easy. Since I've already created a share on my R2 box, I just go to the migration folder, find the appropriate migration tool set. For me, this is the 64-bit, and then simply copy these down to my local computer. So I'm just going to copy that folder, head over to computer, and paste it in. And then after it's pasted in, I'm going to simply hop into my command prompt. In addition to not only having the tools, by the way, you do have to be an admin to be able to do these types of things. So I'm just going to go switch into that folder, and then I simply need to register the tools. And that command is actually very easy. So I'm just going to put a /, and then smigdeploy.exe. And what this is going to do is actually install and configure the files for me, and then also bring up a migration tool PowerShell session. Will then enable me to actually go through the migration. Now, depending on what role you're going to migrate, this all gets into the different tools, but they all start and stop with the SMIG tools for us to work with. So now one of the things I want to hop out of here, out of my virtual machines just for a second to show you, is that how do I find more information about the migration tools? And how do you learn more about how do you migrate DHCP or how do you migrate DNS? Well, I showed you the basic on how to get the tools installed, but if you go to your search engine like Bing and do Migration Tools 2008 R2 and do a quick search on that, it should be the top link almost all the time, or other links that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And then notice I have migrate server roles. Now the great thing about this is that it takes you through guides how to actually migrate different roles, branch cache, DHCP server. And the best thing about that, if you want reference to everything you just saw on this screencast, if you simply go to Windows Server Migration Tools Installation, it steps you through all those different commands and how to actually run the tools that you just saw a minute ago, and how to actually run those tools if you have a core server that you're going to migrate to. Very, very straightforward how to actually work with it. And here's the different commands. SMIG deploy architecture. You can see the different commands and how we use it. So with that, I want to say thank you for tuning in to this quick screencast on how to install the migration tools. Thank you, and have a great day.